All right, let's dive in. This time, we're tackling Mudbloods and Murmurs, Chapter 7 of Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets.
A pivotal chapter for sure.
Definitely. And we've got a ton of notes and lesson plans and study guides all about it.
A mountain of resources.
Exactly. So we're going to break it all down, like create the ultimate cheat sheet for teaching this chapter. For all those teachers out there ready to bring this chapter to life in their classrooms.
Absolutely. And there's so much to unpack, right?
Yeah.
Prejudice, power dynamics, even responsible use of magic, all wrapped up in this one chapter.
Okay, so let's jump right in. That word Malfoy uses, mudblood. Our sources really stress that it's not just a simple insult.
Oh, absolutely. You have to understand the weight of that word in the wizarding world. It's a deep-seated prejudice against anyone who's, well, not from a magical family. Like, their parents are non-magical, and that makes them somehow less than.
Right. Echoes real-world discrimination, doesn't it? Like, based on where you come from, your family history.
Exactly. And it's a perfect opportunity to talk about that with students, the impact of these kinds of words, how prejudice infects a whole society.
And, thinking back to the chapter, it's not just a few gasps when Malfoy says it. There's this, ripple effect. Murmurs, scared looks. It creates this really tense atmosphere.
Oh, for sure. And you can use that, right? Help students explore how language can be used to dehumanize, to marginalize. You can draw parallels to history, how words have been used against certain groups. I mean, there's so many examples.
And it's interesting, right, how Rowling puts Malfoy's prejudice next to Ron trying to defend Hermione, even though, his Ron backfires in the most hilarious way.
Yeah. But even though it's funny, and it totally is, Ron's trying to do the right thing. It shows he's willing to stand up, even if it's impulsive.
It's like a good intention with a messy outcome.
Exactly. And that can spark discussion, right? How do we respond to prejudice? What does allyship look like? And hey, sometimes even good intentions can have unexpected results, especially with a broken wand.
Which reminds me of something a lesson plan pointed out, the irony with Malfoy's pure blood obsession when you think about Neville.
Oh, good point.
Neville's pure blood, right. But he's not exactly a magical prodigy.
That's such a clever detail by Rowling. It totally dismantles Malfoy's whole belief system.
It's like she's saying blood purity is a joke, because magic doesn't work that way.
Yeah, it's about talent and dedication and so many other things.
Right. It shows how prejudice often doesn't make any sense when you look at the facts.
And that's something you can really highlight for students. Challenge them to think critically.
Okay, so we've got this theme of prejudice running strong, but then there's also all this stuff about power, right? Like who has it, who doesn't, between students and teachers.
Yeah. Everywhere you look in this chapter, there's the power dynamic at play. McGonagall handing out detentions, Lockhart wanting Harry's help, Snape always favoring Slytherin.
Oh.
Shows how power works within a school,
And it's not just between teachers and students. There's all the stuff between the students themselves, too.
Oh, absolutely. Think about the twins teasing Ginny, Colin basically worshiping Harry, Malfoy with his fancy new broomstick.
It's like a whole social ecosystem, right?
Exactly. And you can dissect that with students. How these hierarchies work, the pressure to fit in. How do characters navigate these relationships? What choices do they make based on what they believe in?
A lesson plan mentioned Hagrid as a good example. He knows so much, especially about magical creatures, but there's always this shadow of his past expulsion.
Hagrid is a fantastic example. So complex. He challenges authority, like when he goes head-to-head with Lockhart, but he's still bound by the rules.
And we still don't know why he was expelled. It's a mystery that just makes him even more interesting.
Definitely. You can have great conversations about challenging authority, second chances, how our past affects us.
Speaking of challenging authority, we can't forget Lockhart. Our notes really highlight how incompetent he is compared to Hagrid.
Oh, yeah. Lockhart, the self-proclaimed hero. All show, no substance. It's a great contrast to Hagrid, who's actually got the knowledge and experience.
I love that scene where Lockhart's going on and on about Cornish pixies, and Hagrid just says, if one word of it was true, I'll eat my kettle. So blunt, so funny.
Hagrid cuts right through Lockhart's BS. Doesn't fall for the charm. It shows he knows what's what.
Right. It emphasizes how important genuine expertise is, not just appearances.
And it's a good reminder to look beyond the surface. Don't be fooled by glitter and glam.
Okay, so we've got prejudice, power struggles. Oh, and we can't forget the magic itself. Poor Ron and that whole slug incident.
Oh, classic Rowling. Hilarious, but with a serious point underneath.
It's a reminder that magic can be dangerous if you don't know what you're doing.
It's like a warning about mishandling powerful tools. Some study guides even connect it to technology, Things we use every day that can be dangerous if we're not careful.
It shows you need skill, knowledge. It's not just about waving a wand and hoping for the best.
Exactly. Following instructions, understanding your tools, respecting the power of what you're working with.
And we haven't even gotten to that creepy voice Harry hears.
Ooh, right. Things take a dark turn there, all that talk of ripping and tearing.
Sends chills down your spine.
And the fact that Lockhart, the so-called defense against the dark arts expert, doesn't hear it, that's a big red flag.
It makes you wonder, right? Is there something more to Lockhart than meets the eye? Or is he just clueless?
It's a total mystery, but it's a fantastic way to get students thinking critically, have them analyze the clues, make predictions, come up with their own theories.
Like Rowling's dropping hints, leading us deeper into the mystery of the Chamber of Secrets.
Exactly. And it creates that delicious suspense, that what's going to happen next feeling.
And then there's Hagrid's expulsion, another unsolved mystery that hangs over the whole chapter.
So much intrigue. It adds to the suspense, for sure.
This chapter is just packed with stuff to explore.
It really is. And it's all wrapped up in this exciting story that kids just love.
It reminds you that learning can be fun, even when you're dealing with some pretty heavy themes, like prejudice and power.
Yeah, Harry Potter does a great job of making those complex ideas accessible. It's a world that sparks imagination, but it also makes you think. One thing that really stands out, looking at all these sources, is how Rowling juggles all these different storylines in this chapter. Like, you've got the Quidditch rivalry going on, and Ron's wand troubles, Harry's run-ins with Lockhart, and then there's that whole Chamber of Secrets mystery lurking underneath it all.
It's like she's weaving this tapestry,
Yeah.
and each thread adds something new to the picture.
Exactly. And it's not just about the plot either. It's how those storylines reveal who these characters really are. Take Oliver Wood, for example. He is so obsessed with Quidditch.
One study guide even called him, like, single-minded about winning. But I think it's more than that, right? I mean, he's not just in it for the glory.
Right. It's about pride. In his team, in Gryffindor, in the sport itself.
Yeah, his passion is kind of contagious, even if it's a little over the top.
It can be inspiring too, though, right? Like finding something you're that passionate about and just going for it, even when it's tough.
Okay, but then you have the total opposite of Wood's intensity, Colin Creevey. Practically hero-worshipping Harry, which, makes Harry super uncomfortable.
Oh, yeah, poor Harry. That's a great way to explore how fame can be a burden, though. Even positive attention can feel overwhelming.
Like, you can see how much Harry just wants to be a normal kid, but his fame makes that impossible.
Exactly. And it's so relatable for kids today, right? With social media and all that. It's like, how do you balance your public self, who you really are?
Okay, but we have to talk about the Quidditch match.
Mm-hmm.
Gryffindor versus Slytherin. The tension in that scene.
It's electric. You've got the house rivalry, Malfoy being his usual charming self, and then Ron's spell backfiring in the most spectacular way.
Oh man, the slugs.
Pure chaos. But it's amazing how Rowling uses all that to show us who these characters really are.
Yeah, you see Malfoy's true colors, right? All that entitlement, all because of his family's money and influence.
And the new broomsticks, sure, they're impressive, but they don't guarantee a win.
It's a reminder that skill and teamwork are what really matters.
Right. You can have all the fancy gear in the world, but it doesn't mean anything if you don't have the talent and the heart to back it up.
It's the classic underdog story. And Hermione actually points that out, right? That hard work and talent are more important than privilege. But then things get real when Malfoy goes after her with that word.
The mudblood incident, yeah, that changes the whole tone.
It's a gut punch. You're forced to confront just how ugly prejudice is and how much it hurts.
It makes you realize it's not just about words. It's about actions and consequences.
And Ron, jumping to Hermione's defense, even with his messed up wand, it speaks volumes.
He's loyal, and he's starting to see the injustice around him.
One lesson plan suggested having students actually look at why mudblood is such a terrible word. Like, really break it down and see how the other characters react.
That's a great idea. It gets them thinking about how powerful words can be, and how people respond to hate.
It could lead to some really good discussions about prejudice in the real world, too, and what it means to be an ally.
And it's important to create a safe space for those conversations, right, where everyone feels respected and heard.
Definitely. But we can't forget the funny parts either, like Ron trying to curse Malfoy and ending up with a face full of slugs.
Oh, that's pure comedic gold.
It reminds you that you can find humor even in dark situations.
Exactly. A good laugh can be a powerful thing, especially when things get heavy. And it can make a lesson more memorable, too.
So we've talked about prejudice, power dynamics, epic Quidditch matches.
Don't forget the humor.
Right. But there's another piece of the puzzle here. That mystery surrounding Hagrid's expulsion. It's always there, in the background.
It definitely adds a layer of intrigue to the whole chapter. Makes you wonder, what happened?
Some sources suggest that Hagrid's past is going to be important later on. It's a clue we need to pay attention to.
It makes you think about second chances, too, right? And how our past shapes who we are.
But it also raises questions about fairness. Like, was Hagrid treated fairly? Why was he expelled in the first place?
And it connects to that theme of prejudice we were talking about earlier. Was he judged because he's half giant? Was it discrimination?
So many questions.
And that's what makes it such a great chapter for teaching. It's got everything: action, humor, mystery, and it really gets you thinking.
It's like Rowling took all these complex ideas and wove them into this incredible story that just pulls you in.
It's a reminder that learning can be fun. And that even a magical world like Harry Potter can teach us a lot about the real world. We've talked about so much already, but you know what? There's this whole other layer to this chapter that we haven't touched on yet. That mystery, the foreshadowing, like that creepy voice Harry hears in Lockhart's office.
Right. I mean, it's chilling. Yeah. All that talk about ripping and tearing, and it's not exactly a friendly little whisper.
And the thing is, Lockhart, who's supposed to be the expert in, defense against the dark arts, he doesn't hear it at all.
Yeah. It's so strange.
Our study guides were suggesting this could be a really big clue, about what's to come.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? Like, what if it's something, I don't know, supernatural that Lockhart just isn't in tune with?
Right. Or is it, connected to that curse on the defense against the dark arts position?
Maybe there's just more to Lockhart than we realize.
Maybe. There are so many possibilities. And this is where, you can get your students really thinking like detectives. Have them dig into the text, look for clues, make predictions. What could that voice mean?
Yeah, it's like Rowling's dropping these little hints, these breadcrumbs leading us deeper and deeper into the Chamber of Secrets mystery.
Exactly. And it creates this delicious suspense. You just want to know what happens next.
Oh, absolutely. And speaking of mysteries, we can't forget about Hagrid's expulsion, right? It's this big question mark hanging over him.
Definitely adds to the intrigue of the whole chapter. And one lesson plan we came across suggested something really interesting. Have students do some research about prejudice and discrimination in the real world.
Oh, wow. Like comparing it to what we see in the wizarding world.
Exactly. It's a way to connect this fictional world to real issues that kids are facing. It gets them thinking about social justice, how discrimination affects people.
That's a great idea.
And it could even lead to some healthy debate, right? Was Hagrid expelled fairly? Did he get a fair shake? Was it because he was half giant? All these complex questions.
Yeah, it all ties back to that big theme of prejudice that runs through the whole chapter. From the way Malfoy talks about Hermione to all the whispers about Hagrid, it just shows how damaging prejudice can be.
Absolutely. It's a reminder that judging people based on, stereotypes or whatever can lead to all sorts of problems. Fear, misunderstanding, even injustice.
This deep dive has honestly made me see this chapter in a totally new way.
Me too. It's amazing how much Rowling packs into just one chapter.
And it just shows how much there is to unpack when you're teaching literature. It's not just about, summarizing the plot. It's about digging deeper.
Exactly. Helping students understand the characters, the themes, how it all connects to their own lives, to the world around them.
And Harry Potter makes it so engaging. It's a world kids love, but it also gets them thinking about some pretty big ideas.
It really does. So to all the teachers listening out there, remember, go beyond the surface with this chapter. Don't be afraid to dig deep.
Yeah, encourage your students to really analyze the characters, explore those layers of meaning, find those connections to real-world issues.
And who knows, maybe they'll be inspired to write their own stories, right? Stories filled with magic and adventure and, maybe even a bit of social commentary.
Now that's a thought. Well, till next time, everyone, keep exploring, keep discussing, and keep the magic of learning alive.
That's it for our deep dive. Thanks for joining us.